Bespoken Spirits is a modern spirits company blending technology and tradition to take craft spirits to entirely new heights. Their unique craft maturation process unlocks amazing flavor combinations while reducing the environmental impact of each sip. The process is all natural and uses only the highest quality ingredients carefully sourced from the best mills, coopers, and distilleries. The result is an unparalleled flavor experience and something you can feel good about drinking. But don't take our word for it, try it yourself. Bespoken Spirits award-winning products can be purchased through retailers or online. Learn more at www.bespokenspirits.com.
With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
There's a new award-winning 4-grain straight bourbon whiskey that's been taking the market by storm, Penelope Bourbon. Penelope's balanced yet flavorful taste profile comes from a unique blend of 3 bourbon mash bills. Currently available in 3 expressions, 4-grain, barrel strength, and toasted, Penelope is remarkably smooth and flavorful. So whether you're sipping neat or using it in your favorite cocktail, Penelope is perfect for you. Penelope Bourbon is available throughout Kentucky, as well as select markets and online at penelopebourbon.com.
Proudly made in the USA and inspired by the American lifestyle, Country Smooth Bourbon was developed by the first female founder and CEO of an American bourbon whiskey company as a refined experience to be savored on its own or enjoyed in cocktails. We are dedicated to celebrating the spirit of America and the crafting of premium bourbon whiskey. To learn more, visit countrysmooth.com, where you can order online or find a retailer near you. Cheers. Country Smooth. Female founded, country grounded.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my good friend, my buddy, pal, Matt. Matt, what's going on, man?
Mark, not too much, man. I'm doing great this evening. I know you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I'm doing great. How are you?
I was going to ask you, but you always ask me first. You know, we've got that after. Hey, this is episode 90. Do you know that? This is actually our 90th.
I was thinking about that. That was a shower thought that I had earlier today.
I don't want to know any other ones. All right, dude. So let's just leave it at that. But yeah, episode 90. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's been a great year and a half plus, man. We've had a lot of fun doing this. So and you look good out there with that mic and that big extension on that boom arm, man. It looks like Joe Rogan, man. You look, like you're on the big circuit out there.
Hey, enough about me. We got some great guests, right? Should we get into the show here?
Yeah, you know what? And I forgot to check, man. If we have any Barrel Society birthdays, I'm sorry to our members. I'll have to make sure and check that next week, and I'll make it up to everybody. But yeah, let's tell everybody who we have with us, Matt.
All right. Well, first off, a big thank you to our sponsors, and let's get right down to it with the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Bespoken Spirits. We have joining us on this evening for us. This could be morning, afternoon, or evening for you all.
Whenever you're listening.
That's right. Whenever you're listening. We have the Principal Liquor Barn and Alcohol Strategies and the VP of Purchasing at Liquor Barn, Jonathan Blue and Brad Williams, respectively. Gentlemen, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. We really appreciate it. And of course, Liquor Barn is one of our sponsors of the podcast, which we greatly appreciate. I'm a big fan of Liquor Barn, have been for years and years and years. Brad, you and I kind of talked a little bit about that. We can jump into that a little bit later and talk about that history. But what I like to do, so here's another thing. Jonathan, We've never had the opportunity to meet before, unfortunately. Brad, you and I have never met before as much as I go to Liquor Barn. I'm surprised we haven't met and as many barrel picks
We
as
probably crossed paths in the night there in the store and walked right by each other, if I'm guessing.
Yeah, when Mark was on his way in to pick up his mail, he
I
probably
was like, there's no Weller. All right.
Yeah, the mayor. I'm the unofficial mayor of the Hamburg Liquor Barn, apparently. So
That's a good gig.
But yeah, man. So it's great to have you guys on the show. We really appreciate it. And what we like to do, we like to start it out. We like to give our guests just a little bit of an opportunity to explain to our
But
listeners
first, we
who
like
they
to talk
are.
about what we're drinking.
Oh, Matt, you're right, man. Thanks for jumping in there. So yeah, Matt saved me on that one. So we're kind of doing things a little bit different tonight. So we got two different things poured up, but they're from the same brand. So Matt and I and Jonathan, we are going to be drinking the Three Chord Amplify Rye. And this is I believe 95 proofer, if that's 95 proof. I can't remember. This is a 95.5 rye, isn't it, Matt? Was it?
I think so.
Brad shaking his head. Is that? I'm going to have to go back and check that now, but
I would give it 95% chance.
Yeah,
that's true.
And a 5% chance then that it may 5%. Not be that it may be malted barley. I'm not sure.
Somebody else snuck in there.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that because we had this is a brand that's owned by Neil Giraldo, who just happens to also be the husband and lead guitar player for Pat Benatar, and his master blender, Ari Sussman. We had them both on the show last year, and they were great guests. We really enjoyed it. So the three of us are drinking the rye. Brad, what are you stepped up, man. You're like putting it to us on this. What are you drinking over there?
I didn't leave the house today. So I am drinking the Three Chord Whiskey Drummer 15-year bourbon.
Yeah.
And I get it. You guys are going to jam out. All three of you are on point on this ride. I'm going to be the outlier. And just so we can be in tune with the brand.
Yes.
I will sip 15-year Whiskey Drummer while you guys extol the virtues of Amplify Rye.
You're going to make
thanks for falling on the grenade and sipping that 15-year for us.
And I'm going to jump on the grenade. You guys.
Oh, man.
Appreciate that.
You guys go for it.
Yeah. Well, we had a little sample bottle of that Three Chord. But it quickly disappeared. So, but it was really good. So let's talk about the nose then. That's kind of the way we do it. Matt, what do you pick up on the nose on this rye?
There's good sweetness on the nose. Pick up like the caramel is coming across really, really predominantly. It actually, to me, kind of noses like a bourbon, but when you play with it a little longer and really stick your nose down in there, that rye is coming through, getting a little bit more of the grain, a little bit more of the grassy notes from the rye. There's a little bit of mint, also a nice like toasty chocolate or something.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt. The thing that jumps out, and again, this is like the second or third week that we've done a rye, I think, and it's like the mint for some reason just jumps right in my face, and that's the thing that just really jumps out and catches my attention is the mintiness on this one. Jonathan, what about you? I know you joked about Brad having the palate. Matt's the same way. Matt's got the master palate, and I just kind of say vanilla and caramel, and that's about oak every once in a while. But what do you pick up on this Amplify Rye, Jonathan?
Yeah, so I have not had this one yet. I opened it up just now for this.
Okay,
I think it's really, really good. Surprisingly, very, very strong opening for me. Usually get a little bit of a hit the first time you're going into bourbon for the night, but the sweetness comes really, really through. I'm getting a little bit of lime from my senses, and then it goes down very nicely. And I also like to mention, I think the packaging looks good. They did a good job with the kind of the green trim, and it's always. I kind of been getting into the packaging lately as well, even though that doesn't really affect taste. I think the people that take the extra time to really spend time designing packaging, thinking about bottles, thinking about whether or not they're going to seal off the top with plastic and things like that really matters to the customer lately. So that's what I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, it's really good. I love their packaging. They did a great job with this. And this one, their bourbon and their the 12-year or the 12 bar, which is their 12-year-old. And then they also have the Strange Collaboration, which is their whiskey finished in the Matt. What was that? The Pinot Noir.
Noir.
Yeah. So those 4 bottles are all the same shape, different coloring for what they're doing. Like the Pinot Noir Strange Collaboration has like the purpley type of cup of wine color to it. But it's really cool. The Whiskey Drummer though was totally different bottling, which was kind of interesting, Brad. And that's what you've got. So what do you pick up? Yeah, there you go. Man, it's a beautiful bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I wish they would have sent us a whole bottle. So what do you get, Brad? Make us jealous with the nose on that 15-year-old bourbon.
So for me, I think there's probably a lot of your listeners that understand what happened with 15-year bourbon in 2019 and 2020. Suddenly it was out there, right?
Tell us about
suddenly it was out there with a bunch of brands. Some were 150, some were 350, some were 300, some were 250. I'm not getting too much. Have some lawyer contact us, but
those damn
it's
lawyers.
Pretty good liquid. And I think my first statement would be, if you see something that says 15-year Kentucky straight bourbon, it's sort of a clue that it's okay. You're going to pay a different amount between different brands. And Jonathan and I have always looked at a lot of numbers, and we look at a lot of sales, and over the brands, whether it was Doc Swenson or it was Three Chord or some others, they all had different pricing, but they were all, in my opinion, pretty good. And sometimes some people push the boundary of what that price was, but consumers didn't care.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I might sit at my desk and be like, who's going to pay $250 for this? These other 80 people are going to buy all 80 bottles. So for me, this was a really good one. I spent some time with these guys on the phone last year through a Zoom. This pandemic life set in. Everything was Zoom, and they mailed me a bunch of samples. And I will tell you, I drank the Amplify Rye sample. I had a ton of little barrel samples. At home, I went through all of them. This was all that was left. And as some people on this podcast would say, hey, every time you take a drink, the bottle gets lower. And then that anxiety, that bottle panic sets in to when you're like, kind of like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Well, I got half this bottle now. Speaking of bottle panic, so many years ago, I said, once it gets to half, it's time to kill this thing. It's like, when it gets to half, it's time. You can milk it to half, then it's time to go. This is a really good bottle. And I don't think this is in any of our stores right now. And probably never again. But
Right. Yeah, because that 15-year-old came from wherever it came from, but a lot of different brands popped up.
There are stories there that would land us in trouble. But
yeah.
I think it's really good. The nose to me is very traditional and is not too far from the 14-year, 15-year Knob Creeks that are always out and about in the places. Yeah. I mean, so it's soft, sweet stuff to me. It's not bold caramel or bold vanilla. It's very, it's sort of subtle sweetness with some oak and a little bit of leather, a little bit of tobacco, not a ton.
Right.
I love to live on Tobacco Street when it comes to bourbon, but
I get you.
It's very good. Like when I smell this, I literally want to drink it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what, we got the small sample and it was gone pretty quickly. So I completely understand that, Brad, but you're making me jealous. I think you're making Matt jealous.
It's warm up front, a little warm up front.
Yeah. This is what he does to me all the time when I'm traveling. He'll call me and a new bottle sample will come in. He'll say, oh, Jonathan, I just tried it. And guess what? This, and this.
I'm going to buy all of it.
I'm in like some.
Jonathan's like, settle down, Brad.
Well, guys,
by the way, it's a great bottle.
I was just going to say, now that we kind of talked initially about what we're drinking, we can come back and visit the palate and the finish on those here in a minute. Why don't you take a second or two, or as long as you'd like, and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves, kind of your background, what you did before, and then how you got really involved in this industry. Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Listen, first of all, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here, and you guys have done a great job over the years. And you said, I think, broadcast number 90. Congratulations on that. And
thank you.
I know how hard it is to put these things together and coordinating and your time you take personally to do it. So thanks for that. You may not know, biased then, not biased now, but I was at, quite frankly, remember the restaurant Rye on Market Street in downtown Louisville years ago. Might have been now about 14 or 15 years ago, right when they first opened. And there was probably 7 bourbons on the bar, even though the place was called Rye. And today there'd be 100, even though that place has come and gone. They were very nice. And I saw this perfume-shaped, oval, beautiful bottle with wings on it. And I said, let me taste that bourbon. And it was Angel's Envy. And you guys may not know this story. And this was the first one ever finished in port barrels. Now finishing things, we talked a few minutes ago about finishing things in Chardonnay barrels and finishing other things in certain, wine barrels. It was the first thing really finished in a barrel that was of significant scale. And I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the bottle, the design. I knew nothing about it, bluntly. And we were very lucky to come together with the Hendersons after that and make an investment in that company a couple months later. And that's really how we got in the business the very, very first time. As you know from the 3-tier system, Mark and Matt, you can't do a double investment. So we couldn't own the stores. And so the story is quite legendarily, I mean, we with the team and I love that stuff. It's how we got into bourbon. We helped that company grow. We got them into, the New York Athletic Club, the Grand Havana Room in New York, one of the hardest clubs to get into, where you smoke cigars on the top floor, the 666 Filth building. That place is now gone, sadly. And they became top shelf bourbon there. The Core Club and several other places, and it just blossomed and grew. And from there, the company sold to Bacardi. It was bittersweet, but it was the right thing to do because they can take the brand to the next level. And then I got a call from a gentleman named Jerry Rogers, who quite frankly said, listen, do you want to buy Party Mart, which was a legendary 2-store chain in Louisville near where I grew up. And we were blessed to let him give us the opportunity to carry on his legacy. He was the guy you may know him or remember him. And he was the guy in the aisles who was legendarily also known for putting stuff in your basket when you didn't want it and filling it up. We call him the king of the upsale.
Total Wine before Total Wine.
That's right. And from there, very lucky to buy the 15 liquor barn brand stores in Kentucky. I'm born and bred in Kentucky for many generations. My kids have been all born in Kentucky. My grandparents were born in Kentucky, so I feel Kentucky near and dear to my heart. And then we bought the 3 Depp stores in northern Kentucky. Again, very prominent, very lovely family, the Deppenbrocks. And then the Oldhams out of Owensboro, we bought the Jay's chain. And we've opened a store in downtown Louisville since then. And I'd be remiss in not telling you that it's kind of like the Liquor Barn legacy is kind of an interesting one. We've been criticized for not being the Southwest Airlines of the business. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You guys know every Southwest airline is a 737 plane. So if a part, is needed, they just pull it off another plane, and the pilots all know how to fly the same plane. What I always thought was so cool about Liquor Barn is, and you were talking about Mark Hamburg earlier.
Yep.
You go to Hamburg. Hamburg is as different from our downtown Louisville store, is as different from our Hurstbourne store, is as different from any express store we have, to Owensboro, to Depths. It's a different experience every time you walk in. It's not boilerplate. You might find something different. And to me, that's just kind of cool. Each store has its own character, right? Uniquely Kentucky. And listen, we love this business. We we'll talk later on about where we are with it now, but we have a great team. We have great people. I love working with Brad. I love doing things like this with people who are passionate like you two about the spirits business and about bourbon itself, because bourbon is uniquely this business. It's not all from Kentucky, as we know, but Kentucky put it on the map. And so that's basically my story in getting in this business.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely. We'll talk a little bit more about the Liquor Barn story a little bit later, which is really fun for me anyway. But Brad, what about you? How'd you get, I mean, where you from and how'd you get into the business?
Man, it's a long and winding road.
How much time do we have, right?
Just tell me, this is 4 podcasts worth here. So I grew up, I think we talked a little bit earlier. I am Kentucky to the bone.
Yeah.
If you peeled my skin away, you would see like state replicas under my skin. I grew up in Ashland, Kentucky. Proud to say that.
You got to be kidding me! I'm from Flatwoods, man.
What?
Born and raised in Flatwoods. Yeah.
So my wife is a graduate of Russell High School.
I am too. How funny. 1986.
Interesting enough.
What a small world.
I did not know her even growing up in Ashland until I met her at University of Kentucky in Lexington way back when in 1995.
Wow. Crazy.
I'm dating myself there, but somebody get me a walker. But so, I grew up in Eastern Kentucky. I went to UK and I spent a long time there with Liquor Barn in the OG Liquor Barn with Rob Rosenstein and family, who you know.
Yeah.
And then he bought some stores in Louisville from the old Party Source crew. He moved me to Louisville to sort of be his eyes and ears of that operation. And from there, I sort of like a Alaskan salmon swimming upstream, swam through all the categories, all the jobs, and did some different stuff for him. At the end, he sold to a Canadian group, which was 2008, 2009. I have to go back and look it up.
Yeah.
But that was the impetus of where I am today. I sort of did craft beer and home brewing and spent a lot of time on craft beer back when craft beer wasn't as cool as it is the last 10 years, late 90s, early 2000s. I was out there kind of like a street preacher talking about craft beer and home brewing. Nobody's listened to me with some other characters here in the state. And now it is what it is. But the Canadians bought us and they came in and said, hey, at that time, I was actually running everything in Louisville.
Okay.
I was running the stores. I was running beer. I was running OSHA compliance. I was running tobacco. And they came in with a much bigger concept, a much bigger company concept, said, hey, you need to focus either on products or people in stores.
Yeah.
And at that point, I chose products. So they said, hey, we want you to buy beer. We want you to buy spirits. We want you to buy these other things. So, okay, great. Let's do it. I was young. I was ready to do it. And so they made the change. About a week later, a gentleman named John Varicki. Some people in Sazerac lore call him Tree. He was the original Sazerac rep for Kentucky. And this sort of moment shaped me to today. This was probably 2008, maybe. He called me and said, hey, you come out here tomorrow and pick all your Blantons and Hancock barrels. And I was like, what? What are you talking about, pick barrels? I've picked barrels before. It previously was somebody at the old school Liquor Barn. A really good gentleman named Jim Watts taught me. Jim Watts and Rob Rosenstein from that school taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And they said, well, Jim picked all the Blantons and all the Hancocks you ever sell. So I checked into it. It's like, you're right. Every Blanton, and this is what's crazy today in 2021. Back in 2008, 2009, every bottle of Blantons and Hancock we sold was handpicked. It was on the shelf every day.
Yeah.
You'd walk in, it was just right there. People could just buy it all they wanted. So I went out there not knowing anything. I was the craft beer guy. I had been brewing beer. I've been trained to be a brewer.
Right.
I drank bourbon I'll say it, as a teenager and in college, being raised in Kentucky, in Eastern Kentucky.
And if you go watch UK football, you have to drink bourbon, right? I mean, because it's the only way you get through it.
As Jonathan knows, I am blue to the bone. So he said, pick these barrels. He refused to help me. He refused to help me. He refused to tell me anything.
Oh, man.
And so I was sitting there staring at Blanton's barrels, Hancock barrels, Eagle Rare barrels. I didn't know what to do.
Man.
So I tasted through them and I picked them.
And the rest.
And at the end, he told me what he would have picked. It wasn't what I picked. And so at that moment, I had this sort of epiphany of, you know what? I think I sucked today. I think today at Buffalo Trace, I was not very good. And I considered myself good at beer back then. Beer game has changed greatly.
Yeah.
And I decided back then that I would pick every barrel available. I would read everything I could read.
Awesome.
I would taste everything I could taste. And I began picking barrels and sampling things like somebody that age would do, with no kids and plenty of time and not a lot of commitments that are 8 a.m, right? It's like, no, I'm going to drink all this. And so I began picking barrels, and here we are today. I'm still picking all our barrels today, and I still love it as much as I loved it.
Yeah.
15 years ago. My math is probably bad there. 13. Somebody do the math for me. But it's
but like they say, the rest is history.
I love it.
Here
and
we
that's
are.
what I've done. So over the years, I started that, and through then I have worked through different various things from operations and spirits and finance and marketing. And I've grown to love tequila just as much as beer. I know it's sacrilege, but I do. Yeah. Jonathan and I have a very shared love of tequila and aged tequila and barrel picks. And so that's how I wound up on this podcast at this moment.
Well, you mentioned taste.
If we had more time, I would go on.
We
but
could
I've
go
probably
on.
overdone it.
But you mentioned taste and tasting through. So we probably need to jump back to what we're drinking and talk about the taste profile and the finish on this Amplify. We got the Amplify Rye, me and Matt and Jonathan. Brad, you've got the 15 years. So Jonathan, in terms of the taste and on the palate and the finish, what do you get on this?
I'm going to pour a little more here, but yeah, it's...
He's drinking through it. Good job.
Oh, no. He's on point. He's already pouring more.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Way better than I thought. I don't get any significant burn on the tongue at all, which sometimes affects me. I know some people do like that. At 95, it's right there. The wheat, it's interesting. The rye is not coming through as much as I thought it would, even though I love rye. Uh-huh. It's smooth all the way. So I thought there'd be a little more of an expression of that, but I'm not taking that as a negative that it's not coming through. I actually like the way it finishes on the tongue, and it does last. But I'm a fan.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Matt and I were both surprised when we first drank this on the show with Neil and Ari last year, because we'd never had it. And I think we were both, Matt's a rye guy. So Matt, get back to the taste for you. What did you get on it in terms of the palate and the finish?
There's a nice little bit of spice right up front. A little bit of that peppercorn, a little bit of heat coming right up on the front of it. And then it's quite sweet. I pick up a lot of honey coming through with it. And some of that lime that you were talking about, Jonathan, I get a little bit of the citrus comes through on the palate for me, especially. And then the finish is, I'm getting like graham cracker. It's got kind of the sweetness, a little bit of like a dryingness of like a graham cracker, not a cloyingly dry, certainly not a tannic dry,
right?
But like a really nice, like a honey graham cracker really kind of describes it well for me. Good heat lasting on the finish too. It stays with you even at 95 proof. I think it drinks really well, really complete.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. And the sweetness, I love when you get that combination of sweetness and spiciness. And for me, it does both. You get that initial hint of spice on the front end, and then it turns into a little bit of sweetness, like you said, with the honey. But then that spiciness lingers on the palate for me on the finish as well. And it's a nice combination. And again, when we drank this the first time with them, I think you and I were both pleasantly surprised by this. But now, Brad, so you've got the 15 year. So what about you? What do you think in terms of the taste and the finish on that one?
A sip in a second, but I do want to say, who doesn't love graham crackers and honey?
There you go.
Right?
That is literally like, who doesn't like that? You're like the same people like, I hate dogs. Like, I hate graham crackers. What's wrong with you? You don't like honey or graham crackers? Who are you? So this has been a good pour, and I haven't poured it in several months. But
well, Brad, looks like that bottle was about half finished. So you know what that means? It's time to
bottle kill
time. So give us a call.
It's time for like bottle down social media pictures.
There you go. We'd be happy to help you.
It's not extra long in its middle or end, but you know what? It is spicy.
Yeah.
And at 117.9 proof.
Oh yeah.
There's some heat right in the beginning.
Yep.
It's not playing around. And there are traditional sweet notes, just like you, Mark. It is, like vanilla, caramel, but it is spicy and oaky.
Yeah.
And it's hanging around.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hanging around, a little bit of spice and a little bit of heat. However, let's be real. It's a 15-year Kentucky bourbon at barrel proof.
Right.
It's pretty much drinking like it should drink.
Hey, Brad, I have a question for you on that. I don't know the answer. That's not in front of me. I've got the Amplify, but if that were on the shelf tonight, what is that? What is the price that you were talking a little bit earlier about it? I don't know.
I'm going to guess it ends in hundreds.
Yeah. I think I've seen it on the shelf somewhere for around like 225, 229 now. I think it was originally when it came out, I think it was actually a little bit higher than that. So I think the pricing on it.
Well, Mark, you're hired. It's $229.99.
Wow, someone's.
And I'll tell you what, people out there in the whiskey verse, there are still single bottles hanging around a handful of stores.
Okay. All right.
If you like this.
Yeah.
And if you're after some 15-year Kentucky liquid, and I'll say this, from my desk or my seat, I've seen all these 15 years come to life over the last 18 months. $229 is not exorbitant for the people that have been putting this liquid out.
Yeah. No, I
pay $300 or $350, probably not.
Yeah.
But
now, Brad, I'm going to say there might possibly be a bottle at Hamburg, and that might be possibly why I know the price, because it's almost a daily debate that I have with myself.
It's there. You know, this is what you get. I should just come on the show and be like, this is what we have.
This is what we have available. Go pick it up, right?
You know, Beaumont has a couple bottles.
There you go.
Hamburg has a couple bottles. Yep. Danville has a couple bottles. There are 3 Louisville stores, if you're out there.
There you go.
That have a few bottles.
Yeah.
So it's out there. And I get it, man. Some people don't want to pay that much for a 15.
Right.
Knob Creek just put out a 15 for around 150 or something.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Dialing back to the story with you asked for my kind of comic book origin story, is that we used to do Knob Creek barrel picks that were 15 years old, and they were $50.
That's what I was gonna say. That, I mean, when they were,
I stocked up on quite a few of those when I found out.
That's not really true anymore. There are a few 15 years out there floating around, mostly for charities and things.
Right. Now they've cut back down to the 9 years. So, oh yeah. Well, guys,
Three Chord's a good brand. I mean, it's got a good label. They've got a varied portfolio. You know, and there, Benatar thought that guy was cool enough to marry, so he must be a pretty good dude, really, if you think about it. So
yeah, and they are sourced. They're sourced, so all their stuff is sourced. I don't think they are. I don't know that they just steal anything. Everything that they're putting out, as far as I know, is still sourced. I don't know that they're distilling. So Ari says
nothing wrong with that.
No, I
that's my personal opinion over the years. Nothing wrong with sourced.
I agree, and that's what
There's just not.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, guys, let's take a quick break. Get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a second with more with Jonathan Blue and Brad Williams from Liquor Barn in just a second. Everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back. Located just east of Lake Tahoe and the Sierra Nevada mountains, Frey Ranch Distillery was founded by 5th-generation Nevada farmers. Our grain-to-glass bourbon is made using a 4-grain mash bill, including a non-GMO corn, rye, wheat, and barley, all of which is 100% sustainably grown on the 1,500-acre Frey Ranch. And our commitment to excellence shows with a recent gold medal win at the 2020 Whiskeys of the World and USA Spirits competitions. Find out more at www.freyranch.com.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round session period number 2, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. With me, as always, live in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, hey, I'm going to ask you, how you doing out there, Matt?
Oh, Mark, I'm doing so great, man. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
Excited to be back for round or session number 2 here. We've got our great guests back, Jonathan Blue and Brad Williams from Liquor Barn.
Yeah.
And what do we have poured up?
Well, I tell you, for us, again, Matt, we kind of split this up. You and I are going to be drinking. This is a brand new release from Few Spirits, and we had their founder, Paul Letko, on the show last year. Was it last year? Last year?
It was last year.
What God, man, it's like COVID, just time warp. I can't.
Pandemic totally
seriously,
changes
man, it's
everybody's
like,
mindset, right?
It's like, when was that?
I haven't been there in 6 months. Try 18 months.
It's like, yeah, when was that? But yeah, so we had Paul on the show. If you haven't listened to that, go back and check it out. But Paul is up in Evanston, right? Evanston, Illinois. Is that right? Evansville. Okay, sorry. I thought it was Evanston.
Evanston. That's correct.
It is Evanston?
It is Evanston.
Well, home of Northwestern University, by the way.
Okay,
Home of Northwestern University.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So had Paul on the show. Mark. Yeah, kind of a rebel. Just kind of was in a city where they couldn't sell alcohol, and I mean had the rules changed, and started the distillery there, and that they just celebrated their 10th year. So they sent us a bottle of their brand new bottled and bond. So Matt and I are actually going to drink that. So that, of course, bottled and bond, it's 100 proofer. The mash bill, and I don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that this probably follows their normal bourbon mash bill, which was 70, 20, 10, 20 rye. So I'm assuming that this bottled and bond is probably going to follow that same path. It's at least 4 years old. But that, other than that, it doesn't say anything else, but it does say aged at least 4 years old. Brad, you and Jonathan are drinking something else from Fuse. You want to tell everybody what you got poured up?
It's true. Jump in there, Brad.
It's true. So Jonathan and I love Paul. We love Michael Kilmer, who handles a lot of their business. Really good guy. And we handle Michael Kilmer for Tequila Ocho, also Widow Jane.
Oh, yeah.
They're part of a kind of real cool called Sampson and Surrey conglomerate that also includes Few.
Right.
And I've bumped into Paul for years. Either in the market or at craft distillers conferences or market rides. Really good guy. I think you nailed it. He wants to disrupt things from the normal business. And if you went there, it's a very unassuming little tasting room. It's in a back alley in Evanston. And if he were here or Kilmer were here, they'd tell us these awesome stories of temperance and prohibition and things of that nature in that area, and colleges that could not get alcohol but could go 2 streets over and get alcohol. So Jonathan and I have always made the pilgrimage to Fuse Spirits every couple of years just to go see those guys and do some barrels. And we were there. Time flies, Jonathan. We were there in September, maybe not October. I don't remember. Recently.
Yeah. Because you guys
saw those guys. It was great.
You do have a pick out right now. Is that right? I think, did I see one on the shelf?
There are minute bottles of Liquor Barn Rye hanging around.
Okay.
But we will have a couple of barrels of bourbon coming out from them.
Okay.
And it is good. It's a small commitment. Those guys are on a small scale. They want to win Chicago. They want to win the Midwest. When guys from Kentucky show up and they want barrels, they'll let us do some barrels. But we rolled in there, and they kind of showed us this guy. And so your listeners here in the podcast can't see this bottle, but the general few bottles are usually modeled after the like the World's Fair.
Yeah, right.
They're all black and white. In my opinion, I love live music. I've always done a lot of concerts and festivals and things. And I've always thought their labels look like concert posters.
Oh, yeah.
And they're always black and white or red and white or blue and white. This one is full color. And it's got all the cool stuff going on. It's a 4-grain. It's a straight bourbon. It's pretty good. Jonathan and I tasted it when we were there that day and immediately bought some bottles and brought them back with us. We think craft distilling is cool. We think these guys are always fighting the behemoths, trying to get off the mat. They're like Rocky versus Apollo Creed and Rocky 1. They took the punch, they got to get up and keep fighting. So we love this brand. We'd love to support Paul and Kilmer and those guys. And it's just a good brand. The labels are good. Paul is proud. He likes to disrupt the industry.
Right.
So I think this is a great brand.
Yeah.
Of all the craft stuff. And there's a million now, right? You've been in this podcast for a minute. You've been shopping the aisles for a minute.
Yeah.
There's 50 states, and every state has a disruptor. Every state has a small guy. We like these guys.
That's very cool. I'm glad to know that. I'm glad to know that you've got that connection because a lot of people don't know about Few. And, you're talking about Lisa, she is probably, we had her on the show as well. And I think she's probably one of the biggest names that people don't know, I mean, the work that she's done, and the things that they're putting out and stuff. It kind of blows me away. The opportunity to sit and chat with her, just completely down to earth and wonderful person. So it's cool that
you know what, they have expanded into Europe.
Have they really?
We go there and they always tell us these wonderful things they've done. And Jonathan, back me up if I'm wrong, but they've expanded in Europe. They're selling barrels in Europe. They're selling products in Europe. So they're growing internationally. They're growing nationally.
Good.
On a very small scale, doing things on their own. They could have sourced things, but they didn't.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And that's a indicator for me. That's a key indicator for me. Like, you could have sourced things,
right,
but you didn't.
Yeah.
And you decided to go out on your own and just be like, this is who we are. This is where the temperance movement started. We're in Chicago. So I like these guys.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan likes these guys.
I can jump in if you guys want me to. I mean, listen.
Yeah, come on, Jonathan.
I cracked this baby and I'm letting it sit here for a minute as we talk. So I am so excited to taste this. Couple things. We met Paul in New York City at the Flatiron Room when we were nominated for Retailer of the Year, not knowing we would have won, which we did. And Paul was nominated for Spirit of the Year. You had him on your show. He's a wonderful, dynamic guy.
Right.
A lot of people don't know. He may have told you on the show, I'm sure. He's an intellectual property attorney, which we'll get to in a minute. Did he talk about that on the podcast?
It's because I'm an attorney as well. So I remember him saying that he was an attorney.
This podcast is over.
We'll tie that back in a minute. But all jokes aside, he won Spirit of the Year or Bourbon of the Year. I can't remember now. We won Retail of the Year and I think Digital Retail of the Year at the same time. And we were hugging each other. It was, three guys from, call it three underweight fighters out punching their weight, so to speak.
Right.
With all these big boys having won. It was, by the way, the last event, ironically, we went to, Brad, if you remember, before COVID took over the world in New York City, right before.
I could be wrong. It was like February 26th.
That's right.
2020.
That's exactly right. After that, the entire world shut down, and we didn't see anybody for months and months and months. But so a couple things on this stuff. This is the brand that really brought, and I love my state of Kentucky. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But this is the brand that told me, listen, non-Kentucky bourbon can be really, really good. And it really brought me out from being a biased, pound your chest. It's got to be Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky. The other thing is because he's an intellectual property lawyer, these labels are gorgeous. Brad mentioned the concert poster. These remind me of the vintage French Art Deco posters and Art Nouveau posters from the 1900s and the 1930s. Right. And this label, which I'm looking at as well, that you can't see, but Brad mentioned earlier, it's like a Roman Colosseum goddess, Vatican City. I mean, there's so many things that come to mind. And it looks like it's delicious stuff. And they have done a great job. And the last thing I'll say is, Paul, you got to laugh about it because, you go to these Napa Valley events and these wonderful things in Sonoma, and we're taking nothing away from them because we obviously sell a lot of wine at Liquor Barn. And they're such a different, type, with the Brooks Brothers shirt or the polo shirt. You see Paul and he's got his hair blowing in the wind and he's got like a T-shirt on and ripped jeans. He's the antithesis of a Napa vintner. And you got to just compare it. Look, those are two people in the business, polar opposites, and they're doing their thing and you got to love it. Yeah. And so that, I really got to respect the guy and I'm getting ready to taste this.
Great. Well, in terms of the palate or the nose, Matt, what do you get on the, and I guess I should say the name Few, it's actually the initials of the woman who started the temperance movement. Was that the right story, Matt? Wasn't that right? That's her initials?
That does sound right.
So he took her initials. Yeah, he took her initials and actually named his brand. Her initials just kind of
bold, right?
Oh, it is. It's bold, crazy. Right? Yeah. So Few Spirits is named after the woman who started the actual temperance movement years and years ago. So pretty funny. But Matt, in terms of the nose, man, what do you pick up on this bottled in bond?
It's got a little bit of a smoky nose to it. I don't know if you're picking up a little bit of smokiness. I think maybe the char from the oak is coming through that way, but then the corn really comes into me. I get picking up like tortilla chips.
Oh, okay.
Kind of that aroma, and then it's got some sweet berries on the end, like raspberry. The end of the nose, I'm also picking up with it.
Yeah, I definitely, as it sat in a glass longer, the sweetness started coming through. But yeah, I see what you're saying in terms of the oakiness on the front end, which is kind of surprising because it says it's aged for, it says at least 4 years. So there could be other stuff, I mean, it could be older, but you don't expect to get a whole lot of oak on a 4-year-old. But I agree, there is kind of that smokiness coming through there from the barrel. So guys, Brad, Jonathan, you guys are drinking the 10th anniversary celebration. And it was funny because earlier today I was talking with Ashley about which bottles and things we're going to drink, and she's like, "Oh, they do have few spirits." And I was like, "Well, I just got a bottle too." And they're like, "Oh yeah." Ashley's like, "They just got this bottle." So she sent me a picture of it, and I saw the color, and I was like, "Nope." I don't have a bottle that has full color on it, so I knew right away that was not my bottle.
Let me tell you, I walked in the front door and like a radar, they had these bottles set up. Like,
there it is.
There's a colored label on the bar.
Yeah, it's like that scene in the Wizard of Oz.
Two color labels.
The Wizard, where it's like the view behind the curtain.
Yes. Everything finally comes to color.
Oh, anyway. Yeah, right. That's a good point, Matt. That's funny. So, Brad, Jonathan, what do you pick up in terms of the notes on this one?
Hey, Brad, I'll jump in so you don't think I'm plagiarizing at all. So this is a little bit rare for me. It's been sitting, so I don't cut anything. I'm going, straight. It is a delicious, sweet, full run. I'm getting, believe it or not, cherry cobbler.
Okay.
And maybe some, almost like a Bing cherry cobbler finish. Very, very good. Very sweet, rich, maybe a little boysenberry. As crazy as that may sound, Brad, you never heard me use that one because I'm actually getting it.
I just made a look. These guys look at my boysenberry.
I just saw Brad's eyes are like, oh, well, okay.
And it's just delicious stuff.
Very nice. Brad, can you top that? I'm going to say you can't top that one, man.
I could make up a berry,
boysenberry,
like moonwolf berry. The people are like, that's not a real berry. Sometimes people like come with things like, that's not a real berry.
That's not a real thing. Marzipan. That's not really real.
Not a real thing. Nobody has a moonwolf berry. Like, have you looked up moonwolf on Google? You're right. It's not true. I made it up. I would echo what Jonathan says. And at this point in the podcast, I would go back. Jonathan and I tend to agree on a lot of things. And I think it's been special that we've been able to do that and not really kind of butt heads on things. And I do agree with him. It is sweet on the nose.
Nice.
But it's a soft sweet. It's kind of like soft vanilla, soft caramel.
And that is a 4-grain that you're drinking. What's the proof on that, Brad?
It's easy.
Is it?
It's easy right out of the gate. It is easy. For at least for me, after all these years, 93 proof.
Okay.
So now, man, it's easy and it's sweet and it's all those kind of, sometimes I call it candy bar things. I'm not going to go full dessert.
Like nougat?
But when you think of a candy bar, they are the more chocolate, caramel, vanilla things.
Right.
It's rich and there is a little, just enough spice and some Kentucky hug at the end there.
Yeah.
It's good.
Nice.
And it's full and it's not thin and it's not light. And dare I say, sometimes over the years, for me, craft whiskey, like a Rolodex over time, some of the craft whiskeys from other states have been thin.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And light. And maybe they had a great middle, but they had a terrible end. I feel like this 10th anniversary 4-grain is legitimate. And it could be, maybe we're not talking about it, but I'm going to say it, is that craft whiskey in the United States over the last few years has really advanced.
Right.
For me, buying whiskey for the last 13 years or so of getting 6 months old this or 8 month old that or 1 year old this, to start seeing straight whiskeys and straight bourbons and 4-year this and 6-year that, I think we forget where they've come from.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good brand and this is a good bottle. And Jonathan and I were there and they're like, you can only get at the distillery. And we start snapping up bottles. Ashley mentioned, your Ashley impression is spot on. I love you, Ashley. We literally brought these up. And then when you said we're going to taste this, I was excited to open those bottles because I'd left them sealed. And we were only there maybe a month ago. But
wow. Okay.
This is a good bottle, and I think it's the perfect example of American craft whiskey where it is today. Good pack, and I think when we sell few, we're selling it for $40.
Yeah.
And there was a time that craft bourbon, craft whiskey, craft rye was $70, $80, $60. And you're like, hey, I'll sell this one bottle. But when you go back and think about it, is who's going to buy one bottle for $70 that's a year old and then come back and buy something when you can get Four Roses for $35?
Sure. Nope.
Right. Or Buffalo Trace. If you find a Buffalo Trace, $25. It's not going to work. And especially here in what I call like the Napa Valley of American whiskey. And it's kind of that cradle. Kentucky is the belt buckle, but you've got Indiana and Tennessee underneath us, and Virginia trying to make some noise to the right there.
Right.
You cannot put out $80 bottles of whiskey that's a year old.
Yeah. No,
or 2 years old.
I agree with that.
So for me, few is putting out $40 bottles of craft, handmade, handcrafted whiskey. I think it's pretty good. My guess is if we sold this in this state, it's probably closer to 50.
Yeah.
But I would buy it.
Yeah, let me just add to that. The other thing we saw there, which I was envious, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it, but maybe with our relationship, Brad, we can beg, claw, and scratch. And that is they have these gorgeous 200 ml bottles that are basically the shrunken down size of what you're, drinking right now.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Have you seen those 200 ml?
Oh,
he's got one. There it is.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I lost my mind when I saw that. Christmas gifts, holiday gifts. And by the way, the guy that doesn't, maybe want to buy the whole thing because he's just getting started with bourbon, it's a perfect stocking stuffer. And I was like, oh my gosh, can we please get that? But then we've got glass shortages going on and everything else that's causing issues. But what a gorgeous bottle that is.
Yeah, it is. So guys,
it's a good bottle.
Yeah. So we've talked about the whiskey. Let's jump back in. Let's talk a little bit about Liquor Barn. And let's talk a little bit about the history. And when you got Brad, you've been with the company for a long time. Jonathan, I know you guys bought in. Was it around 2017? Is that correct?
Yeah, we bought it from the Canadians right around then. We bought all 15 Kentucky stores. It was their only Kentucky asset.
Yeah. So the history, I mean, it goes back in time. So I don't know if you guys, whichever one of you guys want to jump in and just kind of talk about the Liquor Barn brand, how it started, if you know that, and you can just kind of share that story.
I can chime in on a lot of these because I've been there one way or another. But I'd let Jonathan start because to me, the golden age of Liquor Barn is probably in the 90s or, in my opinion, the last 4 or 5 years. And then, which is Jonathan Blue. So I'd let him start.
Well, nice. Look, you're not giving yourself due credit, but I love going in the parking lot of the Hurstburn store or Beaumont's parking lot in Lexington and seeing an out-of-state plate and just going up to somebody and saying, how do you know about us? And they say, hey, I've been coming here for years. This is part of my stop. I always come this way. I come here and go out of my way to get stuff.
Right.
We appreciate that so much. And we've got a national name that's become, fortunately, international. But listen, a couple things. There's a blended heritage here, right? You've got the Jerry Rogers Party Mart heritage. You've got the Rob Rosenstein, which we'll talk about in a second, Liquor Barn heritage. The Oldhams and that are part of our system now that we bought their business in Owensboro, and then of course the Deppenbrock. So it's like we brought the Kentucky liquor bourbon mafia together, all in one conglomerate. It's funny. Rob Rosenstein, I reached out to him about 8 months or 7 months after we bought the business. He had not owned it now for a while. They had flipped it to the Canadians, and the Canadians had owned it for a little bit.
Right.
And I just really wanted to pick his brain. He was lovely. I'll never forget vividly. He came to a restaurant in downtown Louisville called the Chinzo's with me. We sat for about 3 hours, and we went over his history, and he told me the whole Liquor Barn story. He's an absolute prince of a guy, by the way. I'd never met him. I'd only heard his name. His name preceded him. He was as gracious with his time and his stories as anyone could ever be. He's the only Rosenstein I know. I don't know the rest of the family.
Okay.
He told me the things to look out for. He told me the ups and downs, the positives and negatives. But that's the good part of the story. And then because he's so tough on me, the bad part of the good part of the story, I guess, at the end is I'd get these calls like 6 months later, my cell phone ringing. You know, he talks like he's got a little Kentucky accent, almost with like a little, like I call him the guy that he sounds like he has a Super Bowl in his mouth. He just, Jonathan, yeah. I was in Hamburg last week. 2 things. I went to aisle 14B and you were out of XYZ. And by the way, I had a friend go in there yesterday and he wanted some cigars and you didn't have them. Can you take care of that, please? True story. So it's absolutely true. He's been a great mentor. He's kept me on my toes. I know you'll talk about GoPuff later. We did go to him when we were getting ready to do this transaction, let him know what was going on because he still is the landlord for several of the properties, and he's been a great partner. And he was all for it, and he totally understood what we were doing. And I'll just say, and Brad will echo this in a minute, I've learned a ton from him in my world, and his ethics are off the charts positive, and he's been a great teacher.
Yep. Yeah. And Brad, you've worked with him, or you did work with him. So what your take, since we're talking about Rob, we talk about Liquor Barn, but the whole Rob Rosenstein, his family, his father started the Shoppers Village Liquors. And then Rob started the Liquor Barn over on Richmond Road, which I think
that's right.
I think that was the very first.
That's what I call the Liquor Barn.
Yeah, it's like the Ohio State.
No address. That is Liquor Barn. Richmond Road is the Liquor Barn.
It really.
Everyone else has a street address after it.
They really are. But so you worked with Rob.
We could do a 10-part series on the history of Liquor Barn, but I will tell you there are mentors in my life, as we've all had. And I would say Jonathan has been an incredible mentor to me. There was a gentleman under the Canadian regime when we were at the LSNA named Scott Morrow, who taught me a lot. He was a mentor. Under Rob, there was Rob Rosenstein, Jim Watts, and Roger Leeser.
Okay.
Those were kind of the triumvirate of people who ran Liquor Barn from the late 70s into the mid 2000s when the transaction happened. But I can't say enough about those guys that Rob, very good to me. He would drag me into meetings with people and just be like, just be quiet and take notes. And if you don't have anything to write, just pretend like you're writing something down. And I learned a lot. Just from sitting in those meetings. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. I was doing store operations and craft beer because people just weren't doing craft beer in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I sort of knew that game and was homebrewing myself and was drinking all the beers. Just like we talked earlier about tasting barrels, I started liking beer. It was like, I'm going to brew my own beer and I'm going to drink all these beers. I'm going to read everything about beer. And so he would send me all over the United States and Europe. And I mentioned this to you guys, and what I always loved, and Jonathan's the same way, he would say, take a day for yourself, go up in the mountains, do 2 days in Denver for work and do a half a day doing whatever you want. And I thought that was the greatest. Is that, and Jonathan's been the same way. It's traveling is the best education. Being other places is the best education.
Yeah.
So he was very supportive in that way. And he taught me a lot. Loved his food.
Yeah.
Loved his gourmet food. And I think I can say this without even backing it up. Liquor Barn Lexington had the first fresh olive bar around.
Oh, yeah.
In this state.
Yep. Yeah.
Liquor Barn Lexington had the first fresh bread section in the state. And he would do these amazing travels to California, Oregon, West Coast, Miami, Europe, Asia. And he would come back and have all these wonderful things to say. And so if I had to say one thing, he taught me passion for products.
Yeah.
Whether that was for me for IPAs or Belgian beers or bourbon or olive oil or green tea, all these things that you find a category of a product and you have passion for it. And I feel like it's served me to this day to sort of be passionate about whatever I'm involved in.
Yeah. And
so, he ran those stores. It was a sad day for me when he sold to the Canadians. Yeah. I'm like, you're selling to the Canadians. What's going on? Then you go through things like, well, if you were sold to another country, wouldn't Canada maybe be at the top of the list? Okay, great. You could have been sold to Venezuela. or Pakistan or something, but and nothing against Venezuelans or Pakistans.
Right.
It's just more like that hurt. And I went through all the Canadians and through today, but Rob was always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always in the background, always texting me, always calling me. And to Jonathan's point, Brad, I was in Beaumont Center the other day, and the Rayo's pasta sauce was XYZ. So I'd call the store and they'd be like, "You're right, Rob was in here." So to this day, I would say Rob Rosenstein and the Rosenstein family, which was his father, Irv.
Yeah.
He married Kim, and Kim's father, which we always just knew as Dr. Clausen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Kim's dad. Yeah.
You know, they were always around, and they taught me a lot about different things as a young guy who just thought he knew everything but didn't really know everything. Right.
Well, they're a great family.
Taught me a lot.
And
I've carried it along. And Rob, I would say, still influences Liquor Barn a little bit today. He loves his. We talked about this earlier. When I was at Liquor Barn, he loved gourmet food and wine. Today, Rob Rosenstein loves bourbon. And I get texts and emails and when is Warehouse C rolling out? What's going on with birthday? How do I get a bottle of Weller? Can you hand me a thing of Buffalo Trace?
Oh man, that's great.
So it's been a fun ride, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that when Jonathan took the company over after probably a decade of Canadians, and trust me, I learned a lot from these guys in Canada. Say what you want about the Canadians, what was going on. I learned a lot from those guys. I feel like Jonathan brought us back to our roots.
Yeah.
And brought us back to being local.
Yep.
And brought us back to a passion for products when maybe the previous regime from north of us was a little bit more about dollars and donuts.
Yeah.
But
no,
I've gone a little bit too long there.
No, but I would agree with that, Brad, just as a consumer, because, we talked about that earlier. My ex-wife actually nannied for Rob and his wife, Kim, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I'd known Rob for a long time. And just like you said, just one of the most classy persons you could ever meet. Always had a positive thing to say. Most of the time, sometimes, if something was wrong, he would let you know. But, it was great. Friday night, he'd give my ex-wife, when we were dating at the time, he'd, slide her $50 and say, "You guys go out and have a good time. Okay." And it's just always a great guy. And I love when I get to see him. And I love what the store was then. And, especially when they started the one on Richmond Road, it was so cool because you could go in and find everything and all this unique stuff. You just couldn't find it anywhere else. And I think the store got away from that for a while, but now you guys, Jonathan, you guys have brought that back. And I agree with that, Brad. And as a long time, 30+ year customer, for me, it's just been great because I can go back in, to Liquor Barn and find these things on the shelves that I'm not going to find anywhere else. And it's really, to me, it's just kind of my place.
I'll say it again, and he's on the line here, Jonathan. Don't get too big here. Jonathan and Rob are peas in a pod.
Yeah.
And both of them have a passion for life, and both of them have a passion for products. And I will tell you, Jonathan and I have nerded out, had lots of passion for whiskey and tequila and different things and meals and people and adventures. And that's what it reminds me of. So Jonathan Blue's version of Liquor Barn reminds me of OG Liquor Barn.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. So there it is. That's
very cool. Well, guys, we're at the end of round 2. So let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors. But before we do, I guess we should talk about the finish on the few. Matt, what do you think in terms of the taste on this one? I forgot to talk about that.
It's got a good taste of corn right up front. Then I pick up, as it's finishing and going down the palate, I pick up like a peanut brittle, and that raspberry is coming through as well. And then the oak is long on the finish.
Yeah,
for me,
it's a little tannic to me. Did you pick that up a little drying or not?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm tasting the oak.
Yeah,
okay. a little bit coming down the line on the finish, a little drying.
Yeah, it's not bad. It kind of reminds me a little bit in the terms of the finish that the old tub that we had early this year that being put out. To me, that was just a little bit drying on the finish. So it kind of reminds me of that. But the spiciness, the sweetness, that combination again, and this is a 20% rye, so it is a higher rye. But I really enjoy it. Brad, Jonathan, your 10th anniversary. What do you guys think about that one?
Sorry, Brad. I thought you were going to go there. Listen, I like it. We're going back and forth. I like it straight down the middle to me. A great finish, sweet all the way around. I don't get any negativity out of it. Sorry, a little background noise there, guys.
That's all right.
I like it. I mean, it's a winner for me. I'd go to it daily if it were part of the collection, if it were available. But I think this is a one and done, and we got to get on it and get it going.
Yeah. Brad, you're licking your lips over there. What about you?
I'm thinking about things, man. But it's good. And for a 10th anniversary bottle, it should have some what I always sort of call oomph. And the finish is long. It is spicy at times. It's a little dry. I don't want to say it's alcohol heat. There's a little heat there.
Yeah.
That could be the 4-grain recipe. It could be that it's not 8 years old or 10 years old.
Right.
Which we all know the barrel always trims the edges, right? And the longer it goes, it trims those edges off. This is a good finish. A lot of flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't put a huge sip there that was left in my glass. There's a lot of flavor there, but it is sort of a spicy rye finish, a little bit of oak. And then there is, I mean, you've heard me talking here ad nauseum, but there's just a little hug in there. There's a little Jimmy Russell trying to give me a hug there for a second. But it's good.
Good.
It's good. And I think to talk about what I maybe was jabbering on about earlier, there's a finish there. There is some character there, right, which I think maybe American craft whiskey was missing for a long time. And maybe a lot of these guys are finding their way.
Good. Awesome. Well, it sounds like 2 thumbs up on everything here from us for sure on that. So Few Spirits doing a great job. So glad to have those. So let's get a quick break in, get some word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Brad Williams and Jonathan Blue from Liquor Barn in just a second. Everybody sit tight. We'll be right back. Spirits of French Lick crafts their spirits using only the finest agricultural product that has defined character, following their motto, respect the grain. They lead the way in representing the quality of the Hoosier artisan distilling process while paying tribute to its inseparable past. By implementing best practices from those early times, combined with modern touches, Spirits of French Lick has created a truly unique place in the industry. Spirits of French Lick products are distributed throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, and can also be purchased online through Sealbox at sealbox.com. Visit spiritsoffrenchlick.com to learn more information and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final segment, session, round, period, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. You know, since we were talking about Canadians earlier, we should call this period 3 of the Bourbon Life Podcast, right? So there we go. So
nice.
we're in the third period of the Bourbon Life Podcast. We're going to wrap it up, bring it home. Matt, how you doing over there, man?
Good. If we really want to get Canadian here, being from Michigan, I can do this all night long, but we would be on the third serving of poutine here. But we have back again for our third serving, Jonathan Blue and Brad Williams from Liquor Barn, and we have got poured up for us one of your all's store picks. So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit about what this is? So I think Brad, you were probably instrumental in this. So take us through it.
It was a cold day.
It was a dark and stormy night.
So I think we're all on some different picks here, but the only thing I would say is that the Weller picks are very polarizing. over the years. We talked about this earlier, way back when I did Weller picks, they were all 10 years old, and they were 8 years old, and they were 7 years old. And for several years now, most Weller picks are about 6.5 years old. Somebody could say they were 6 years, 10 months old, 6 years, 6 months old. We'll just call it 6.5 for this. So we sort of had to adjust over time what the expectations were. And I think I asked you earlier, is this a screw top or a cork finish
right.
That we were drinking? So for me, I am drinking a cork finish gold foil.
Yeah.
Barrel number 13, 23rd series non-chill filter. So I'll go ahead and say this. 9 times out of 10, let me back up a step. When you do these barrels, you have to get online. You have to put in your words and your logos for all these stickers. I would say 9 times out of 10, I get them right. There's a 10th time that I forget to put NCF or non-chill filtered.
And you break the internet when you do that, Brad.
So I can tell you that it's been a minute. I would have to call Bo Beckman at Sazerac to figure out when it was. It might have been 2016 that it was every pick we do, whether I say it or not, is NCF.
Right.
And 9 out of 10 times, I remember to type NCF on that label. And there's a 10th time that I just didn't put it on there. But rest assured that the good folks at Sazerac know it's NCF. And through several people that have contacted me through the interwebs over the years that were like, this doesn't say NCF. Why is it not NCF? They contact Sazerac. Sazerac always copies me. Bo, Suzanne, they're always really good about copying me. Oh. They show all the deets. It's NCF. To me, that's the best version, is 107 or 114 non-chill filter, whether it's a light barrel or not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that goes on. Maybe people don't realize that some entities that pick barrels will pick full barrels versus light barrels. Some people don't want NCF. So for us, it's like, I don't care what it is. It's non-chill filter. To me, it's a bolder, fuller flavor. The middle, you want to talk about the aroma, the beginning, the middle, and the end. A non-chill filter bourbon, to me, the middle is always there. It's always viscous. It's a little more oily. It's a little more flavorful. Right. So to me, it's like, I don't care if I'm giving it bottles. I don't care if we're picking a light barrel. I don't care if it's 10 cases or 30 cases. That's the one we're going to pick. I feel like in the last couple of years, the Wellers have really begun to come around and are pretty good. I love the 114s. And if we want to do some self-deprecating humor here, in the beginning of the 114s, I would put NCF on the sticker. Even though the back label says it's NCF. So some of our friends out in the bourbon verse would say things like, why did they put NCF on it? It says NCF on the back label. That's only me reacting to be like, shit, I forgot to put NCF on that 107. I got to make sure this says non-chill filter. So these are always good. I think, Mark, what we're drinking, you and I might be into 2019.
I think mine was, what did I say, the 15th barrel? Is that what I said? Barrel.
It could be a 20.
Barrel number 15, 20th series is what I've got here.
It takes 6+ months to get a barrel from them now. Yeah. And we were a little late last year. So for everybody out there, a lot of the stuff we released in the first half of 21 was technically from 20.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the end of 19 rolled into January, February of 20. So there's a little confusion out there. I could pull some stuff off my phone, but I am barrel 13, 23rd series NCF, cork finish, gold foil, not screw cap.
Yep. 3 times.
It's a good bottle.
3 times the retail price as the screw. No, I'm just kidding.
There are people out there that want to pay for that.
Oh, I think we froze up there for a second, guys.
Said that for another episode of how do we do it? But it's a good bottle. It's nice and dark. Put it up there.
Oh yeah, definitely. So in terms of the nose, what do you guys pick up?
If you guys want to know what I buy, I don't chase a lot of unicorns. I typically buy our Sazerac barrels. I buy our Four Roses barrels. I buy our Russell's barrels.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is sort of my triumvirate of what I go out and buy and bring back and sip on all the time. Do I have other things? Yes, I do. But these are the things that I sort of keep at home all the time. So when you said Weller 107, I already had a little plethora to pull from.
Yeah. So in terms of the nose on this, what are you guys picking up? Matt, I always throw it to you, so I'm just going to throw it back to you on the nose.
Sure deal. I pick up a good bit of wheat coming through on the nose. I know this is the wheated bourbon, so I get some of that, like that wheat bread, kind of that softness that I associate with like a fresh wheat bread. And then I'm picking up some fruit is coming through. I get a little bit of like tangerine and a little bit of cherry. I usually get cherry when it comes to 107. Yeah, there's a little bit of tangerine in there, something like a touch of citrus with it as well. I'm picking up.
The cherry definitely comes through to me on these, and I love it. I love the aroma. It's not overpowering. It's not too alcoholic. It's obviously 107 proof, so a little bit higher in proof for some people, but it's the nose on it is super manageable, and there's a sweetness. Matt, like you said, a little bit fruitiness. Jonathan, what do you pick up on that?
Gonna have to admit, guys, I cheated on you tonight, and I got a semi-dusty antique 107 out. And I didn't tell Brad. I just told him it was the Weller 107 because that's what it is, right? So I don't know what year this is, but I know it is because I don't remember, a single barrel select from Party Mart. Looking at it in the light here, barrel number 220.
It's the old bottle.
227.
Yeah.
Still the screw top. No, still the screw top. So I opened it up. This is heaven, quite frankly. Don't mind telling you. And
it's probably 10 years old.
You guys are
probably 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah. You guys are getting all the as you should be in the later years. This is a little bit older. And listen, I got a lot. It's interesting how different it is for Weller and for being so much earlier. And I'll tell you what my negativity is on how they do this in a minute, but getting a ton of butterscotch on this one, believe it or not. Caramel, I never use these terms. Heavy candy corn, maple syrup, vanilla, and the biggest thing coming through, bread pudding. My favorite thing in the world. It's basically the best thing I've ever had. And I'm just telling you, I love Weller. We all do on this phone. I don't know who picked this one out, Brad. It wasn't you or I. That's for sure. Because this is before my time, right when we bought Party Mart. And it's just delicious. And the other thing I was going to say for the experts on the phone, on the podcast, which is what you all do, I wish they would label the year on Weller. I really do. And
gotcha.
Again, why not just say, hey, it was 2015 or 2012 or
right.
I mean, what's the downside? And I know our stickers on here, or at least the Party Mart stickers on here, but they should do something. Even BTAC, it changes every year, right? Sure, It's supposed to be the same general concept, but they should say 2021. They should say 20. I mean, we all know what's going on with BTAC this year, missing the tag. Does that make last year so much more valuable, or this year's coming up after this year so much more valuable? Let's see what it is. So that's my complaint with those guys, because a 107 is a 107 every day. But this is absolutely stunning.
Well, now I'm really jealous.
I suspect it is. And my guess, Jonathan, that is the bell-shaped bottle with the thin neck that they've moved away from. Now it's almost like that. What they put out now is like that old bottle was like if you were on a computer and you pushed your hands like this,
right?
It stretched out. Those are great bottles.
Yeah,
I can tell you when that was, Jonathan. Most of those barrels were 9 to 10.5 years old, and you all can say that for another podcast of the changeover in years and vintages, and what some companies do to hide that or change that. But for me, I can tell you that there was a huge drop off once that happened, and it took almost a reset of me coming in going, okay, it's not this anymore. It's not this anymore. So I've got to reset my mind and palate to this is what it is now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like for Liquor Barn, 2019, 2020, 21, I feel like we've sort of regained where we were with some of that. And I feel like maybe we had a drifting period between those older vintages and the newer vintages in my changing palate for those.
Yeah. Hey, on that, we should talk about that, Brad. Hey, Mark, I know you wanted to lead into that just for a second before you get to GoPuff. If you decide to bring that up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Brad and I consider barrel picks an honor. We really do. Look, right. Brad is the original barrel pick, and I mean that sincerely. He built brands at this company. People would say, well, I can't sell 200 bottles. What are you talking about? I might take 10. And Brad saw the vision. And by the way, imagine doing that in the dark ages back then when no one knew what would happen. I mean, you got to remember, you're talking about something that didn't come back hot really for the last 5 to 7 years. That's how long it took to go lightning hot. 15 years ago, no one was talking about this. And so what we've tried to do is, and look, we brought the most interesting man in the world of Dos Equis. We've taken all these people on barrel picks. We just had.
He's great, by the way.
Yeah, he's great. We just had Brothers Bond in, Ian Summerhalder, who's.
Oh, yeah, right.
What a wonderful guy. He's got his own brand, one of the fastest growing bourbons in history at 50,000 cases in 12 months.
Wow.
Again, new bourbon, new stuff, like something you guys may not necessarily be connoisseurs of. But listen, today the celebrity thing is huge. And what we try to do is we've tried to marry the old, very prominent Liquor Barn brand with the new cool celebrities, with the young, craft beer guys. And it's not easy to please all. And, we've got so many SKUs. We've got to make sure that we manage our population. But I'll just tell you, it is so chic and so cool to be part of these barrel picks, and we consider them an honor when we get to do them. It's getting harder and harder to get them. The time frame's getting longer and longer to get in the bottle. But I'll tell you, it's uniquely Kentucky, in my opinion. It is an incredible experience when we bring people in to do it. I brought 2 guys, whether they surgeons or whatever they are, and Brad in the other day. They said all they want to do is go on a barrel pick in Kentucky, so we made it happen. And Nice. They almost cried when they got there. I mean,
well, that's
it
really
was
cool.
so cool to see.
Yeah, and that is a great experience.
We all take it for granted, and I think to echo Jonathan, maybe after so many years, even myself, I may have taken it for granted.
Right.
And sort of back in about 18 or 19, redialed in. It was like, no, I've got to stop thinking of this as normal and stop thinking this is how that happens and start rethinking of this as there are people still entering this category. When is the bubble going to end? I don't know. But I'm in a lot of groups. I'm in a lot of social media groups, and I see people, and they're like, look at my collection. It's 5 bottles. Or it's 10 bottles. They're like, I just put Basil Hayden in this collection. And it is a refresher for me right away to say, hey, wait a minute. I'm not talking to Mark and Matt
right.
all the time.
Right.
I am actually talking to this guy who just started. So it is an evolution. Everyone's palate, I mean, it's sort of science really, is everyone's palate changes.
Yep.
And the industry is changing. So to Jonathan's point is that we have to keep trying to do more. It gets harder and harder to get the barrels. It gets harder and harder to get them here in a normal amount of time.
Sure.
And it is impossible. And I'll say this and you can fact check me. It's impossible to please everyone. Someone might think that BT pick, that Buffalo Trace pick, is a little oaky. Some people might think it's a little sweet. And so I've had to have sort of the horse blinders.
Yeah.
You know what? I am not ever, regardless of what our Canadian Day marketing would have me say, I'm never going to say our barrel picks are the best. What I will say with full authority is that we tried to pick the best barrel. We tried to pick a really good barrel. And I think anybody that goes into it, if you guys have done barrel picks and your people out there in the podcast have done barrel picks, you've been there with dissenters.
Oh yeah.
And 4 people loved it and 2 people hated it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The biggest eye opener for me ever was, and Mark, maybe you remember this, we did a thing with Wild Turkey called Generations Pack. And it was a 3-pack of Wild Turkey bourbons.
Okay. No, I don't remember.
First one was Kentucky Spirit, which I picked with Jimmy Russell. The second one was Russell's Reserve Single Barrel, which I picked with Eddie Russell. The third one was, at the time, Bruce Russell, Eddie's son, was the ambassador for Russell's Reserve Rye. We did what is now sort of a unicorn, a Russell's Reserve Rye Liquor Barn Single Barrel. We put them in a wooden box. It's called Generations Pack. Totally awesome. People loved them. Some people didn't buy them. But that day, those three Russells could not agree. They could not agree on the best spirit. They could not agree on the best Russell's bourbon. They could not agree on the rest, on the best single barrel rye. And I had this huge light bulb epiphany of like, hey, Liquor Barn is selling everything. I spend a lot of time on bourbon and American whiskey, but I also spend time on vodka and tequila and our other buyers of managing them and our general business. These three guys spend their entire time on these bourbons and these labels, and they cannot agree on what are the best liquids. How will we ever agree on what these best liquids are? So I sort of transcended there and was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's going to be somebody that doesn't like this pick.
Yeah. And that's what,
there's going to be somebody that hates this pick. There's going to be a bunch of people that love this pick. And if you can reach that sort of level of, you're never going to satisfy everyone in bourbon.
Yeah. And that's what we had Greg.
You can move forth and do good. I know it sounds crazy.
No, we had Greg Metz with Old Elk on the show. And, he said it several times. He's like, look, everybody has their own unique palate. It's like a fingerprint. So everybody's different. Not everybody's going to agree on everything. Not everybody's going to like everything, but you are who you are and you taste things the way you do. So, and I agree with that. So guys, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with Liquor Barn right now. There've been some changes in the business model. So, Jonathan, if you want, I'll just throw it over to you and you can kind of explain and tell our listeners what's actually going on with the brand right now.
Yeah, great question. And Mark, it shouldn't look that much different to the end user that comes in the store or a longtime customer. Definitely no cutback in SKUs or any change in corporate strategy or anything like that. I guess the main thing is this. Look, we were very lucky years ago to go hand in hand with Drizzly, with the legislatures, and change the law in Kentucky to wake the legislators up and have them agree to have delivery be legal in Kentucky like every other state.
Right.
And they were gracious enough to help pass that law. And so now you're able to get wine, beer, spirits, food, whatever delivered to your doorstep. And, basically we were averaging between 30 and 45 minutes and, at peak times, maybe an hour. And we changed the world of our Commonwealth as far as, hey, you can now literally have something brought to your door that you want. You don't have to leave. And it's been very successful for us. We then built our own app, the Liquor Barn app, which got worldwide acclaim, as I told you a few minutes ago, at the Bourbon Awards in New York when we were with Paul. And it's been a great thing for us, never knowing there'd be a global pandemic in 2020. Never knowing that when we built all this. And, sometimes the expression, you're much luckier than smart, right?
Right.
And so we're just glad that we're able to make people have what they needed at very difficult times in everyone's life, as well as not having to go out and get exposed. So that's part one. Part two is this, my kids probably won't go to a liquor store in 15 years or 10 years. Everyone's going to want things delivered to their doorstep. But what I didn't understand about this, quite frankly, is the younger generation, and now moving into the people who are in their 30s, want instant needs. They want it in 30 minutes. They want it in 20 minutes. And we found a company out there called GoPuff that figured out how to do this in 19 minutes around the world. They're in New York. They're about to go into Paris. They're going into London. They bought a company in Germany. They're in almost, I think, 35 states now. And they have figured out two things. One, how to deliver daily essential needs, essential daily things. They call it the instant needs category. Could be aspirin. Could be a phone charger. Could be, obviously, you talked about old tub, could be old tub,
right?
To your door that fast. And secondly, with worldwide scope. So everyone says, well, what about DoorDash? What about Amazon? What about this? What about that? Well, they don't carry their own inventory. They are delivering someone else's inventory. And even if it's Kroger, who we love and respect very much in our state, and they're very good competition, although they're really going to get challenged pretty soon when Publix comes in, who's an incredible chain in Florida.
I love Publix.
Yeah. Well, if you've been in one, it's going to be eye-opening for everybody. But even Kroger, they've got very few SKUs. Costco has very few SKUs. And I'm not slamming the competition. They are fantastic. But Liquor Barn has the most SKUs of anybody basically in the state. And so now we've done this. Long-winded answer, but we have married the instant needs of, batteries, diapers, aspirin, Tylenol, Kleenex, and spirits in one, so you don't have to go to Kroger to make that stop. You can go to a Liquor Barn, or more importantly, when this happens in Kentucky in the next 90 days, download your app and say, GoPuff, boom, bring this, and this, and bring my bourbon. And no one will catch us. No one's going to be able to live up to this. And it's exactly why we did this. And it's really going to be a global phenomenon. So I'm sure you have some questions on it, but that was really the intention.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that makes sense to me. So will Liquor Barn as a brand still remain as Liquor Barn, or will it all become GoPuff and the Liquor Barn, the liquor side of it will go into GoPuff?
Right, great. So right now the plan is to have Liquor Barn keep its brand. It's got such great brand equity.
Sure.
In Des Moines, Iowa, if we buy a chain or a small store there, it will be a GoPuff store day one. They'll flip the name. But
right.
You've got BevMo in California, you've got Liquor Barn in Kentucky, and those are just prominent companies that were so prestigious for so long. Right now, the plan is to run simultaneously. So
okay.
That's what we're doing right now.
I got you. So moving forward then, so you talked about the GoPuff, the app. I mean, obviously there's an app for that. So will the Liquor Barn app still remain as well, or will that actually go into the GoPuff app, or will they both remain apps that because for me, I have the Liquor Barn app, so I can jump on there and see what's available, see what I need. Well, will users still be able to do that as we move forward?
Yeah, such important stuff. So right now, everything is supposed to be simultaneous.
Okay.
Even BevMo in California is still running Drizzly, and by the way, Instacart.
Oh, okay.
To give you an idea.
Okay. Yeah.
I think they do $1 million a month in Instacart.
Okay.
To show you how significant it is.
Yeah.
So right now, yes, that is the plan. There's not a global plan to convert the name because, again, we are local and hyper-local in our market. But the other thing is for the customer and for people like you on the podcast, we plan on buying these bourbons because of our now global scale at far less cost, hopefully, than we've ever been able to do it, and therefore pass that savings on to the customer. So all the chains that that we're all familiar with, that we all grew up with, that have done well on bulk pricing, we will now be able to take all of them on and hopefully have a lower margin, lower unit cost for the customer.
Yeah, that's awesome. I honestly, Jonathan, as you know, when this was announced, I walk into the Liquor Barn and I look at everybody. I'm like, "Are you guys still going to be here next week? I love you guys. I got to have you here." Yeah, like Brad, even though we have not met, but a Liquor Barn is my place. And Hamburg, you've got 20 beers on tap. You got great prices on that. You've got a tasting bar with. Well, okay, I'll tell you how important Liquor Barn is to me. Matt and I actually met at Liquor Barn at a Pappy Van Winkle lottery in 2019. So that's how Matt and I. That's how Matt and I
wouldn't be here if it weren't for Liquor Barn.
That's exactly right. And then after the lottery,
one quick insertion on that. Sorry to interrupt you. One quick thing. We wanted to start doing those again, and I did talk to the governor. Brad knows this. We would love to start those up tomorrow morning, but the problem is the governor has asked for social distancing and spacing, and our fear is, everybody you've seen it in the hotels and the convenience stores, the stickers that you put on the floor,
right?
It says 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Listen, at a PVW or at a BTAC thing,
no.
It ain't gonna happen.
No, it's not.
And so. And he told me this, and the first time that I see people spacing together, I'm going to call you out on it. And so we just have to have people safe, and we don't want to upset the government. It's now, let us serve our population. So I did want to mention that we missed those days so much. I don't know if you remember, Matt and Mark, the parties we had at Hamburg and the bands. And they were great events, and the COVID sadly stopped all that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Matt and I spent a lot of time up there. We both camped out up there. I camped out for 37 hours for the E.H. Taylor Amaranth Grain of the Gods, which I was able to get. So I do miss those days. I look forward to those days coming back, but I understand. I think all of our listeners also understand that, it is what it is right now, and we have to keep everybody safe. So, but hopefully we'll get the opportunity to return, back to that. But yeah, like I said, the Hamburg store, I've gone there for years. I love the fact that, you got the deli there. I can have lunch. I can go in after work, which I've done often. just because I live about 5 minutes away, and you've got the 20 different beers that rotate on draft there. You've got probably 70 or 80 different bourbons and ryes and other whiskeys that you can sample. And then every once in a while, a surprise bottle will show up on there. Like one of Matt's favorites, the 6-year-old Heaven Hill bottled in bond that's been gone for 2 or 3 years. That made an appearance on the tasting bar at Hamburg just a few months ago. So, and the people there, like Justin, Jessica, Jonathan, people that work there in that store. I mean, I know those people. I go in and talk to them, and we talk about bourbon. We talk about the Bourbon Life. And I'm happy to know that that's going to stay the same as a customer, as a long-term 30+ year customer of Liquor Barn. I'm just happy to know that's going to, that part
of
it. Yeah. Yeah. So
it's like Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name, right?
Listen, man, that's a great store.
It is. It really is.
Jordan is great. Andrew there is great.
Yeah.
Amy has been in the non-oxide there for a minute, is great.
Yeah.
I love that store. And I would just add this. Jonathan, who is still sort of the maestro of Kentucky, and GoPuff, nobody has told me to stop buying barrels. Nobody has told me to raise a price. Nobody's told me to lower a price. It is about instant needs. It is about delivery of alcohol and instant need categories. Nobody has said, let's mess with this secret sauce. And we've talked about the history of Liquor Barn, right? I have lived all of it.
Right.
From the original owners to today. And I say this with all sincerity to your listeners. I have no ominous feelings. I have no what WTF is this? I'm on a lot of calls. Jonathan's on a lot of calls. And I think it is beneficial for the future of Liquor Barn and the future of Liquor Barn's consumers and consumers in general of how are we going to purchase things in the future? Are we always going to purchase things in person? Maybe not. Probably not.
Right.
And I think pandemic probably accelerated that vision and made that happen faster than it normally would, right? Listen, let's tell you this straight up. My dog food comes every 3 weeks to my front porch. Our dog treats come every 2 weeks to our front porch. I order chlorine for this every so many often. So there's so many things that people want instant needs, and GoPuff are experts at instant needs. And I happen to think, in my own personal opinion, that the combination of Liquor Barn in Kentucky, or even Bevmo in California, or some of the independents they have, combined with the power of GoPuff Instant Needs, is a very powerful combination of what consumers want.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like it, and it sounds like that's the future. That's where we're moving toward. And that was going to be one of my questions. You guys really answered that. Obviously, that the future of delivery of not just alcohol but all products. I mean, as many products as you can put into a micro. I think you call them micro distribution centers. Is that right? Or is that what they're referred to?
There are micro distribution. There's omni distribution, and people will see these in our stores. And I often sort of joke like, Liquor Barn has come full circle, and Rob Rosenstein would probably laugh out loud. Is that we've come back to is like, no, we're going to sell you super unique ice cream and a bottle of bourbon.
Sure. Yeah.
You're going to get a Snickers bar and a thing of Nerds.
Right.
And a bottle of vodka and a mixer. And I think Jonathan was very wise to see the future and that this is how consumers will consume goods moving forward.
Yep.
You will get things on your front porch, and you will venture out and do brick and mortar retail.
Right.
It's just what it is. And I happen to think we're on the forefront of that.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it for sure. So real quick, let's talk about the back to the 107, because we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but I want to talk about the 107, the pick. Matt, what do you think on this one?
On the palate, I pick up, I get some nougat on the palate for me. And then, of course, the cherry comes through, kind of like a sweet cherry, of course. And then the kind of the best descriptor I can get off of this is Neapolitan ice cream. It's got chocolate, vanilla, and a little bit of like the strawberry. And I think it's like the combination when you don't scoop horizontally and grab each one, but you go vertically and you get the scoop of all three of them together.
Yeah.
Kind of that melding of the taste in there. To me, it tastes like Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah. The cherry sticks out to me so much. That's just, and I love it. I love the way it feels on the palate. The wheat, it just kind of coats the mouth as well. It's got a nice finish on it. It's not a super long finish, but I just still feel it, not on my tongue so much, but throughout my mouth. I get that Kentucky hug on this one, Brad, that you talked about. It does actually give me a pretty nice hug. So definitely enjoy that one. So Jonathan, what about you?
I'm getting again, I gave you some additives before. The last thing I get here coming down the end is the cotton candy finish on this one. I've got a very different bottle, as you know.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's not something I've tasted as standard for these 107s, but it's delicious. And listen, I wish there were a lot more of it out there.
No doubt.
Yeah, no kidding. Brad, what about you over there? You're smacking your lips again, man. So you're deep in thought on this one.
I've talked about Jimmy Russell a little bit. He's influenced me a lot over the years. The first person to tell me about the Kentucky Chew, which is you just put a little bit in your mouth and you sort of
yeah.
And it's also a fail-safe for all of you out there to try bourbon, but not ingest too much bourbon, so you can continue with your evening or your day drinking bourbon. And so what I think about this is, at least what I'm drinking, I'll say it again, it is Barrel 13, 23rd series, probably 2019, maybe 2020.
Yeah.
It is full flavored, but I think the finish is where it comes through, and it is those dark fruits and sweet caramel, sweet vanilla things. But this particular bottle it's got some oak and it's got some spice in the finish. And so it lingers. This bottle lingers for me. I think it's a long finish. And for me, it was a long time ago, Jim Rutledge, I would do barrels with him for us, and he would say finish is everything.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I was enamored with aromas. You'd say if some of us at this age group move back to grade school, they'd close your nose. You'd have you smell and taste a potato and smell and taste an apple and try to get you to tell which one it was, which is very eye-opening, right? It's like, oh, this apple tastes like a potato because I didn't know what was going on. So to me, if it smelled good and it tasted okay, it was very hard to come back from smelling delicious. Jim Rutledge, on the other hand, was like, it has to finish. It has to have a good finish. And if it's not a medium to long finish, I don't want anything to do with it. And he told me that one day, and it sort of blew my mind. It was like, I'm not really taking finish into account here. And so this particular bottle has an awesome finish. It is a sweetish aroma. It is a sweetish initial and mid palate. But the finish is oak and spice, and it's not heat to me. And maybe it's just where I'm at. We've had various bottles here and things going on, but it is a very nice, spicy, oaky finish, medium to long. So I can enjoy this bottle more than once, but I've only got now about 2/3 of a bottle of this left. So we'll see. I won't be able to replicate.
It's almost bottle kill time, right?
Look for this in the future. It is almost bottle kill time. Yes.
Well, we are at the end of round 3 here, guys. But before we wrap it up, just final thoughts in terms of what the future looks like for Liquor Barn, for GoPuff, the combination there. What are your final thoughts on that?
I can wrap this up and just say, listen, first of all, we're going to be opening more locations and serving the rest of the state. So that's great as far as the Liquor Barn brand. And then, look for some global announcements very soon from the parent company. Things are moving very fast. I think that, again, there's never been a model that can put something at your doorstep in 20 minutes. And that's what people are going to want. I mean, the funny story is the other day, of all things, I said, we needed some wine or something in our house and some eye drops and something else. And it got there literally in 19 minutes. And it was just so shocking that it could happen. And again, yeah, it's an instant world now, but that it really does come true and is exemplified with this delivery thing. Second thing is, I would just like to thank people like you guys. I mean, listen, you're growing our industry by what you do every day. Without you and without bringing bourbon to the world, and without the Bourbon Life, people aren't as educated and as aware and don't get to meet the personalities. So thanks for all you do. And that asset for us is you guys are ambassadors for the industry, and we very much appreciate you spreading the word. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that kind words. Definitely. Brad, what about you?
Man, I would echo what Jonathan said on a lot of these calls. And I think Jonathan, anything has always been on point about the future. What I would say from my seat behind the desk is that I will continue to try. I'm not ever going to say that we put out the best barrels. I'm just going to put out that we will try to give you good bottles from good barrels. And I think that's always been true. We will continue to try to do that. We will also continue to support the little guys. And I'm saying that from a space of being in some of these GoPuff calls and BevMo calls. We will continue to support local entities, whether it's distilleries, breweries, or wineries, or sea salt or food or chocolates. We will continue to support that. And we will do our best to bring new things to the market and try to make everybody happy, which is not always easy, but we're going to attempt that.
No, that sounds great. Well, guys, I've really enjoyed this. I know we ran long. Appreciate your patience. I know we had some technical difficulties at the very beginning of all this. So we appreciate you guys being patient and sticking around with us. I've really enjoyed the conversation and getting to learn more about who you guys are. Hopefully we'll get the opportunity to meet you guys in person at some point. So Matt, before we wrap it up, anything you wanna add here?
Jonathan and Brad, thank you both so much for being on the show and for your support of the show, and for also just the integrity that you put towards your business and your craft. It definitely feels like talking to you both, that this isn't just the business of making money. You're actually trying to bring something special to Kentucky and to everyone that you're involved with. I really appreciate that. I think your commitment to being local and to staying true to who Liquor Barn was in the beginning and who you are now really shines through. It's great that we were able to get you both on here and chat with you about it and hear about everything that's happening. I'm just super appreciative of everything you've done for the greater Kentucky community, and looking forward to everything you do in the future.
Matt, that was very well said.
I appreciate that. We love that.
Yeah. And I could not say anything better. That was great, Matt. And I agree wholeheartedly. I'm a big fan of Liquor Barn, have been for 30 plus years. Love what you guys do and want to see that continue. And we'll continue to support you guys, obviously, at my little bar top stool table at Liquor Barn, Hamburg, enjoying a draft beer or a pour of whiskey, as I like to do. So just appreciate you guys very much for joining us tonight. And with that said, we want to thank all our sponsors. And of course, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast, presented by Bespoken Spirits. And we appreciate all of our sponsors, including Liquor Barn, of course. Thank you guys for being with us. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up, send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Whether it's rye, sour mash Tennessee whiskey, or bourbon, Davidson Reserve has something delicious to offer any whiskey lover's palate. Pick up a bottle of one of our award-winning Davidson Reserve whiskeys from your local retailer today. Visit www.davidsonreserve.com for more information. And cheers to drinking local.